for this capsule to come back. It came back about 3 o'clock British time, which is night time in Australia. They were targeting a prohibited military area, a safe area where if bits were to fall out of the sky they wouldn't hurt anybody. And we waited and waited, and eventually the video came back, and it was really quite spectacular. A fireball coming across the sky. You have to imagine that this capsule, which has been out near Mars with a spacecraft,
and here they are. If you just look here it comes.
We can see it here now. If you look at the pictures, you can see a main fireball. That is the main spacecraft of Hayabusa breaking up. But if you look in front of it, we'll catch it in just a moment. There's one little spot of light off to the right, down near the bottom of the picture. That is the capsule. And you'll see the rest of the spacecraft is totally destroyed. One little point of light hangs on. And that is this 40-centimeter wide disk that has a heat shield on it to protect it from temperatures up to 3,000 degrees. And it managed to come through the Earth's atmosphere, slowed sufficiently, and then deployed a parachute and landed in the Australian outback. And the scientists then went looking for it in a helicopter. They found where it was. Of course, it's night time, so it's too dangerous to land, but they know precisely where it is. It looks intact, and they'll go back in the morning and try and recover it.
So come daylight, there's going to be a lot of speculation and excitement as to whether there's actually even any dust inside it.
Well, Hayabusa left Earth in 2003 to visit this asteroid called Itokawa, which is named after a famous Japanese rocket scientist. It spent about 3 months at the asteroid in 2005. It had a number of technical problems throughout the mission, in fact, but every time a problem came up, the engineers managed to find a solution. It landed on the asteroid, and it had this horn-like affair which was supposed to go down onto the surface and then fire a ball bearing, and that would kick dust up and it would go inside into the capsule that we've just seen return. Now, the analysis that was done suggested that the ball bearing did not fire properly, but the scientists say just the mere fact of the probe touching down on the surface of the asteroid probably kicked up material, and that came inside the capsule.
What are they going to discover from this dust if they can get some?
We'd like to know about the early history of the solar system. The solar system was created around the sun about 4.5 billion years ago, just over. Now, if you want to see rocks, the building blocks from that time, you can't find them on Earth, because on Earth rocks are constantly recycled, so you have to go into space to do that. We get some rocks from space, these are meteorites, but of course, as you've seen, as they come through the atmosphere, they get very burnt up. So you want pristine samples off the surface of an asteroid, and that's the point of going to places like Itokawa, picking them up, bringing them back in a safe manner, and then you can put them in a laboratory and look at them very, very carefully to see the sort of ingredients that went in to building the Earth.
Okay, Jonathan, thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Now let's try and get the weather back on Earth, and Helen has the details for us.
Good evening. We're warning of some really nasty weather to end the day, particularly if you're on the road.
Of Woomera, we were told that to be the best place to see this thing come in, and it was incredible. You can see from the pictures that kind of fireball effect. You know, as you say, this craft is made to burn up on re-entry, and that capsule now is still out here in the outback, and they're going to go and pick that up later on today, and they're hoping that there is some of this asteroid dust somewhere in there.
I was going to ask if the crowds were happy with the display. We can hear the oohs and ahs, Mark, in the background.
Well, one of those couples had come.
В австралийской пустыне приземлилась капсула с японского зонда «Сокол». Сам зонд сгорел в плотных слоях атмосферы, завершив свою 7-летнюю космическую миссию. В ближайшие дни капсулу привезут в Японию. Ученые надеются, что обнаружат под оболочкой пробы грунта с астероида Итакава. Это один из ближайших к Земле астероидов. Он вращается возле Марса. Это уже вторая попытка зонда доставить капсулу на Землю. Первая сорвалась из-за поломки аппарата. В случае успеха экспедиции содержимое капсулы поможет ученым приоткрыть тайну рождения нашей планеты.
日本太空探測機準鳥號喺星期一降落喺澳洲內陸地區。準鳥號完成前往地球附近小行星 C 村嘅7年旅程。科學家希望從佢嘅探測結果之中尋找太陽系誕生嘅秘密。
日本嘅小行星探測機準鳥號經過7年60億公里嘅旅程，完成咗探測地球附近嘅小行星 C 村嘅任務。喺佢重新進入地球大氣層嘅時候，好似閃電一樣照亮夜空。重達500公斤嘅準鳥號探測機由日本宇宙航空研究開發機構 JXA 喺2003年5月發射，05年降落喺形狀唔規則嘅小行星川 C。準鳥號係首架月球以外天體着陸並且返到地球嘅探測機，係人類第一次對地球有威脅嘅小行星進行物質收集嘅研究，亦都係第一個將小行星物質帶返地球嘅任務。 日本宇航局喺日本時間星期一下午收集探測機嘅膠囊，並將膠囊裏嘅物質轉移到日本進行分析。科學家希望準鳥號嘅絲穿之行能夠帶嚟小行星以及太陽系形成嘅訊息。呢個亦係測試一個新科技，以便未來採集其他太空樣本返回地球。
These incredible pictures mark the last moments of the Hayabusa space explorer. The Japanese probe burned up in a spectacular fireball after returning to Earth from a 7-year, 4 billion-mile journey. The space capsule successfully completed its mission to collect the first ever material samples from an asteroid. It's the first time that a spacecraft has successfully landed on an asteroid and returned to Earth. Yoshiyuki Hasegawa of Japan's Aerospace Exploration Agency said his team had identified the location of the capsule in the Australian outback and that the samples will be taken to Japan for analysis as soon as possible.
It is a wonderful situation for us, so we are exciting and more cheerful face. And finally, soft landed on, also identified the location. Oh, that's good, so we can proceed the next step for taking the capsule and internal material, something like for the analysis in the future.
Scientists hope the findings from the safely jettisoned return capsule could provide clues to the creation of the solar system.
Probe carrying the first asteroid dust ever collected has crashed back down to Earth in the outback of South Australia.
Joining us now in the studio is Dr. Maurice Jones, space analyst and author, to tell us how the landing went. Dr. Jones, good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
Firstly, tell us, how exactly did it come down to Earth? Was it an easy, did it go as planned?
Everything went as planned, and that's a lot better than I expected. This spacecraft has had more problems than Apollo 13, and it was lucky just to make it back to Earth, but I thought it wouldn't survive the re-entry, and I was very relieved to find that it did.
Tell us about something about the mission itself, what it's hoping to achieve and what it's done.
Okay, this is the first spacecraft to land near an asteroid or touch its surface and retrieve some samples and return those samples to Earth. Nothing's ever been done like that before. We've never had a piece of an asteroid on the Earth before that has been collected by a spacecraft.
How far out?
Well, it's somewhere out beyond the orbit of roughly the same distance as Mars. These things move around, so it's not the main asteroid belt, so it's a fairly close one. And it's taken the spacecraft on a journey, a round trip of about 6 billion kilometres just to get back.
And it was launched in 2003, so just tell us, in terms of the length of time in space, how significant is that?
Okay, it's a very long time for a little spacecraft like that to be on such a mission. It didn't reach the asteroid until 2005, and it was supposed to come home 2 years later, but it had all sorts of malfunctions, and it's taken it a lot longer to limp back to Earth than it should have.
So the Japanese must be feeling so good about themselves.
They're thrilled. They're posting cute little messages onto the internet about sort of calling it like a little person and cheering it on. You know the way the Japanese get excited about things like this. So they've definitely personified the spacecraft. And I think there'll be a lot of smiling faces for a mission that a lot of people thought would never return back to Earth.
And I was intrigued to note that there was a bit of protocol about how it was to be approached when it actually came back down to Earth. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Okay, I mean, part of it involved a bit of respect to the tribal elders who are in the area, so that there were sort of traditional protocols, but there were also safety issues in terms of making sure that you didn't damage the capsule and that you handled it safely after its retrieval. So a lot of factors involved in bringing it back, and very soon it will be on a plane back to Japan.
And the material that's collected, what use will that be?
Okay, we don't know how much is on board. We don't think it collected very much, but even just a little bit will tell you a lot, because this is material that can't be found on Earth. It's left over from the early formation of the solar system. So it's a bit like having a time machine to see events as they were billions of years ago, probably before the Earth even existed.
Stunning. Maurice Jones, thanks so much for coming in. Great to talk.
道路が閉鎖され、救助隊が木にしがみついている10代の少女を含め50人を救出しました。日本の科学者たちが初めて小惑星から帰還を果たしたキャプセルを回収しました。カプセルは母船から切り離され、パラシュートでオーストラリアの人里離れた砂漠に落下しました。母船は計画通り燃え尽きました。実に7年をかけて64億キロメートルにわたる旅を終えての帰還です。科学者たちはヘリで落下地点に運ばれ、キャプセルを回収しました。キャプセルは日本に運ばれ、小惑星の砂が入っているかどうかを確かめます。